So thank you very much. We're going to hear from each of the groups now, groups 1 to 8. And so we will hand the microphone to first to group 1. So if you just find a place to sit down, and then we'll convene. Okay, so group number 1 is going to just give us a brief summary. Shh. Great. Yeah, so this is group number 1, Julie Clegg. Yeah, so group number 1. Thank you. Thank you. Shh.
How can we be... How can we be agents of change? We need to make that first personal step and connect to others, because together we are strong and we can do more. Our long-ranging conversations concluded that we have to begin to own the identity of the label Catholic Theological Ethics in the World Church, to realize that this network is something that we can do more to shape and not be passive recipients of the initiatives coming from the planning committee alone, quite brilliant though they are. So to find new ways in our own regions to live out the mission of CTEWC, because in so doing, we can then be better agents of change within the church and the world.
Thank you, Julie. Group number 2.
I can immediately continue that, because we got more in the practical consequences of that. Like, how do we then continue this network at a regional level? And for us, the theme of the relationship between the young scholars and the senior scholars was also an issue coming up. So we would love to have kind of this conference, but at a European level, with as many people as possible, also people that we now feel are still isolated. So how can we include them? And it is important that young scholars and senior scholars keep on meeting like this, because they have a lot to learn from each other. But also, how do we network in between these conferences and these meetings? How do we find creative ways to interact in between, for example, through Facebook, to online seminars to discuss papers, by mentoring sessions in between countries, etc. But also, for example, to connect at conferences in interest groups, so that you know, like, okay, these people are into my field in social ethics, these ones are in biomedical ethics, etc. Because now it depends on who you happen to meet individually, but then you would get a grasp of who is doing what, and where the connections lie more. And the third thing, very quickly, is a request from the younger scholars to help young scholars by giving opportunities to present papers and to publish. It was not my request, because I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity. I was very grateful to be in the book of Antonio and to be able to present a paper. But so this is a really nice opportunity, and we just want to take them with both hands, and we hope there's a lot more coming. So help us get into paper sessions, into publications, help us to see what might be interesting journals for us to publish our papers, because you all know how important that is for our institutions and our careers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So group number 3.
So we have 2 similar points. The first one is about academic cooperation, and Europe has 3, if you want, different cultures: English-speaking, continental, and Mediterranean. So it's not an easy thing to connect. We also think we should have a conference more often, a regional conference, and that should have as one of its sub-themes at least methodology, because it's about being able to relate the very different paradigms in which we work, in kind of the different intellectual and linguistic traditions, and to know in what way we argue. And one of the terms we were looking at was, if you talk about prophetic prudence, for some of us that's an absolute oxymoron. Yeah, it's absolutely not possible to have prudence and prophetic. It's where the two cultures clash. The biblical culture, prophetic, and the prudence, basically the continuity ethos. So it's worth a debate, yeah, if an invention like this is put forward at a conference. So therefore methodology would be not just something boring, it really has something to do with content. So this whole idea of critique of discourses that Michel put forward, I think that's an important point, an important part of the mission, but we really need to identify where are our points of leverage, because the problems of the world are too big for this organization to solve, so we need to identify where exactly can we make a difference, to whom do we have to speak, and of course it's a big advantage to have a church in one's country that can be influenced. Yeah, that's what the philosophers don't have. So it's a different conference, therefore, to, for instance, Societas Ethica and so on, but we need a regional kind of every 3 year or so gathering to kind of be able to use the riches of the European continent, the greater independence that we have from, for instance, the churches, the university culture, which doesn't kind of need people to mortgage their future to get a kind of a degree. So we have great resources and we should be able to use them, but we have to identify kind of themes for meeting between the world conferences. So,
thank you, Maureen. Group number 4 joined another group, so group number 5? No, oh, no, yeah.
4.
5? Oh, 4, okay. 5.
The group 4 has 3 points.
It's okay. The group, that's fine.
4 is before 5. No? Thank you. So we come from different parts of Europe. West Europe, Central Europe, East Europe. From different universities, Italian, German, and French. So first point, we need a common language. And it will be English. It will be more and more English for us and the new generation. The second point, ecclesiological context of our churches. How to be a theologian and to do what we have to do in this context. Context where connections are less than divisions. Between lay people and bishops, we are intermediary. We are theologians, and we are we build a bridge between people and bishops, conservative and liberal context, lay power and ordained power in the faculty, academic authority and liberty of researchers. So how to be a theologian in this context? We have to be theologian and to do theology. The third point is what kind of support for our connection in Europe. And the group was in favor of creating database with not content, moral content and positions, but with argument in the anthropological level, anthropological foundations. We don't have any common anthropology now. So we have to provide some arguments to build some bridge in this context of Catholic ethical theology in Europe. 3 point, English, being an intermediary between divisions and a tool of connection. And the third is the support of our connections will be a database with internet, with contents of anthropological foundations.
Thank you. the next group. I can't remember. 4.
We were definitely group 6. So we spent quite a bit of time speaking about networking, the strengths of some of the associations of which our members in that group were a part, and then some of the challenges and the issues that we're facing. There were quite a number of practical issues that came up, ideas and suggestions as to how to strengthen some of those associations, but also how to create better links between them and so on. Some of those points are going to be addressed tomorrow, so I'm not going to get into that. Instead, what we decided was just to give you a kind of an overview of the status quo in terms of our group and who we were and the kind of associations that we were a part of. And there's a bit of diversity here. So, for example, in Spain, there's no formal association for theological ethicists. In the UK, and it also includes the Irish group, that association is in a state of flux at the moment. We're not sure where the future of that association is going. The French association is linked with other European countries such as Luxembourg and Belgium. Equally, the German group has links with Eastern European associations and theologians there. There's an Italian group. So there was a lot of diversity there. There's a lot of opportunity there. But some of those associations are in different states of health, so to speak. So we looked at how we can strengthen some of those, how we can create new links, not just between those associations, but also looking at issues, topics, so that people from different countries who specialize in an area can form links and actually advance issues, in different ways. So some of those will be mentioned tomorrow as well.
Thank you. Group number 7.
So in group 7, we had a wide-ranging discussion. And we decided that the most important point that we wanted to bring forward was, and this in part echoes points that have been made before, to use this network, the CTEWC network, better. But we were thinking not primarily in terms of more conferences, as valuable as they are when they can be arranged, but firstly, in terms of increased communication and information available as a European region. So, for example, we talked about having a database that would be searchable for European scholars here, not only in terms of contact details, but in terms of areas of scholarly interest as well. Centralizing information about opportunities for working in theological ethics, perhaps having regular regional updates, a regional newsletter or something like that. And we also pointed out that one of the things that such increased communication could do would be to allow us to find ways to meet within other existing frameworks when there isn't a European Catholic Theological Ethics in the World Church Conference going on. So for instance, we said we could arrange to meet as European ethicists within the European Society of Catholic Theology, for instance, who I believe have a conference every year. So overall, we just talked about strengthening and more clearly defining the regional identity of us as a European group within CTEWC.
Thank you. And before we go to our final group, just a reminder apropos of the comment there that on the CTEWC website there is a map, and we've always asked people to please put in all of your contact details, your areas of interest. You can put your mouse hovering over the map and any country, and you should get any of the information that people have uploaded onto that website. So we would really encourage people to do that. Thank you. And Group 8. Thanks.
Hello, Group 8 also had a very interesting discussion. You can imagine we didn't come up with very new points, so let me stress maybe 3 points that have already been mentioned, but that were also very important to us. First point is, of course, we are all big fans of networking, and it was surprising to see that there are some members of our small group which are totally isolated, basically, in their country. Being the only moral theologian, Catholic ethicist in the country, I'm, for example, an example for that, being the only one in Israel at the moment. The second example was the importance of personal encounters, that all online platforms are very helpful, but in the end we need the personal encounter and also a kind of room to give and take, to make offers, to come up with concrete projects and to get things started. And the last point, the third one, is we should be more attentive to the tools that are already at our hands, that are on the table, the website, the newsletter first, to use these tools to make them more effective and productive. Thank you.
So thanks to all of the groups and to all of the reporters. We will be meeting here again tomorrow morning at 10 p.m. to continue our discussion. Please remember the number of the group you're in. Write it on your brochure now, because you may not. We would like the groups to continue the conversations as they are. So thank you very much, and we are reconvening in 15 minutes.